Royalty in disguise. Put your fist up in the skies. Royalty in disguise. Put your fist up in the skies. Don't even trip. Empty your clip. Fuck all that shit. Your blood is royal. Rich like the soil. In every trip. Peeping the script. Some people been chipped. Some people go flip over a brick, over a zip. Just get a grip. Loyalty and disguise. Put your fist up in the skies. When you and I, U-N-I-T-Y. We your force, better recognize. Royalty in disguise. Put your fist up in the skies. When you and I, U-N-I-T-Y. We your force, better recognize. Purple rain, purple rain. Purple pain, purple pain. They playing games, playing games. Won't name no names, won't name no names. Don't even trip, empty your clip. Fuck all that shit, your blood is royal. Rich like the soil, in every trip. Peeping the script, some people been chipped. Some people go flip over a brick, over a zip, or over your lip. Loyalty in disguise. Put your fist up in the skies. When you and I, U-N-I-T-Y, we your force. You better recognize. When you and I, U-N-I-T-Y, we your force. Better recognize. Don't need no heat. Don't make no blood bleed in the streets. Or you on a leash. You can't even see. Royalty in disguise. You niggas better recognize. Royalty in disguise. Put your fist up in the skies. We're gonna get started. So tonight we're going to be discussing energy vampires and how unconsciousness supports us in being someone who withdraws energy but not quite aware of how to conduct and transmit and reciprocate energy. So there is a lot of negativity around this conversation, period. Most of the time we hear energy vampire and our minds start thinking of all of the people we feel like might fit the bill. And that's a normal thing for someone who has subconscious programming of being a victim due to unprocessed trauma. And so what we're going to discuss is from a different aspect, because the shame and the guilt that we feel around some of these shadow aspects is actually what keeps it active in our vortex. And anything that is active in your vortex becomes a magnet, and it's only going to attract what is a vibrational match. And, so being someone with complex PTSD, I have had many times where I had to face the fact that, I didn't know how to create my own high vibration. I didn't know how to sustain a positive mindset long enough to have the positive experiences that I desire. And as I began reverse engineering what the issue was, which was the birth of the root chakra camp, and conversations with my inner child and my shadow self, and I was like, okay, I get it now. This is a way that I created for myself and my egoic self to be able to navigate life. But I was missing a very important piece, which was acknowledging my own feelings, my own self, my own beliefs, my wants, my needs, and not being afraid to express those and create boundaries to protect these new found senses of a more balanced self, which is the I divinity. So we're going to discuss that tonight. Of course, I can't be serious for too long, so I'm probably go joke. So let me just let you know now, I'm not one of them people who can just transmit a message and be serious all the time. It's not in my nature, and have been trying to repress this for so long because I'm like, I talk about some traumatizing things, and it's just like, you know what? No, humor is here to help us transmute trauma. So yeah, so joke might peek out. All right. So before we begin, was it anything that you wanted to share based on what we spoke about earlier? Would you like me to get going, get vibing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the poll is in, and we appreciate y'all for letting us know what you wanted to talk about for the next interactive podcast. And so I'm going to start off with a quiz so that you can identify whether you could possibly be someone who is an energy vampire in your unconsciousness and unawareness, or in relationship with someone who has a constant need for attention, validation, and just anything for them to feel better about themselves because they haven't yet been able to plug into their divinity to create that love for their own selves. So you might want to just keep account to yourself of how many of these resonate with you. Do you take care of others better than yourself? Have you ever walked into a room, felt negativity to the point of needing to leave, but you felt like it may be too offensive to others, so you ignored your own self? You remained in that space, though you did not feel comfortable, and this is something called self-betrayal. All right. So self-betrayal sets us up to attract people who don't respect boundaries because maybe it's not something that they're adapted to. Many of us, that's new for us. We're learning how to create healthy boundaries. But on the other side of that, sometimes people aren't going to be happy about that. And for me, being the rescuer, wounded child archetype, being the savior and the redeemer, of every situation, every problem that anybody has ever brought to me. Like, it was just ridiculous how much I would betray my own self. And so I attracted narcissists, which are also energy vampires, into my life because of the energy that I invested in saving others and ignoring how I felt. The next one: do you avoid expressing your feelings in an effort to keep peace? Number 3: at times, you can be a people pleaser or you may do things out of guilt, but being diplomatic often backfires. You try to make everything okay, and yet people still react irrationally toward you, leaving you to deal with your unfair projections created by the external person, places, or thing. Okay. Yeah. Write down like all of them. So I think this is number 4. Number 4: have you ever placed yourself in any self-sacrificing positions in order to keep peace in the environment as well? So it's a little different because self-sacrificing is, even though I know that I'm having a migraine, I'm going to agree to cook this huge meal for me and my in-laws. And I really, really, really need to be resting, or I really need to be taking care of myself. But I don't feel comfortable being judged or people feeling like I'm not a good person, right? Or I changed and I'm not the person that I used to be. And I don't want to make them uncomfortable. So I'm going to sacrifice my health so that I could keep peace in this environment. All right. Number 5, the right connections. And this is a sign of as you're progressing through these self-realizations and healing. So this is one of the signs that your healing has absolutely begun. The right connections will always respect your boundaries, and those friends or partners won't ask for more than what you can give in the present moment. So as you shift your vibrational frequency to be in alignment with your authentic self, including your core needs, you're going to begin to notice you're attracting people who operate in a similar manner. And we're all on different levels of operating like this. But by changing you, you change what you attract, who you attract. Okay. The next one, and this is kind of delving into the 3D matrix veil coming down and what that means for our experience on Earth. Now that the veil is thinner than ever, many shadow aspects have become obvious. There are ways we can continue to heal without sacrificing our mental and physical health. Right. We're going to go over ways to handle toxic people that drain your energy. If any of those resonated with you, you're on the journey. Congratulations. Like, this is the goal. This is the soul's work. This is why we are here, to be whole, right? So we're going to go over that. And one of the first ones that I recommend you start practicing now is keeping contact as limited as possible with people who may not be understanding or compassionate with the fact that you are healing from many different trauma wounds and inner child wounds, and you will not participate in activities and conversations the way you used to because you are now understanding the way the law of attraction works. Okay. So that's something that can help us. Now, the next recommendation to help shift out of this frequency, I'm going to just read this to you. Do not give your energy or focus unless your heart feels comfortable around certain persons, places, or things. If you have no choice, and this is for people who work around coworkers and go to school and just some situation, maybe you have a big family, y'all have a lot of family gatherings, maybe you had friends that y'all would get together. If you still are, because you're not going to just overnight. So if you still do feel like you have to show up when you're invited, you can use psychic shielding during those interactions. And psychic shielding is simply visualizing a bubble around you that is going to buffer and protect you from anything that may attach to you, anchoring you in the vibrational frequency that you know you do not want to be in. Okay, and that's one of the most simple things that you can do as well. Another thing, if you are having these interactions, you will notice that you are triggered easily, and you will also notice the mind having many different versions of why you should take it personal. And I speak from experience. Do not take these things personal. They were toxic pertaining to the person, places, or things. They were toxic before you, just as we have toxic traits. Remember, this is a spiritual journey, not a personal offense. When you're on a spiritual journey, the reason that you get triggered is different. you're triggering now is to draw your attention to the wounds that require nourishment and healing. Okay. Keep your boundaries and standards strong, aligning them with your values and beliefs. So, great example of this, if you now feel going to church is something that is not resonating with you to do, but you may have people that you care for who invite you to services, that's a boundary for you based on a belief that they have not encountered. It may not resonate as true for them that religion has been the root of a lot of disservice to the self, losing our soul purpose, not knowing our life purpose, losing our sense of self, right? And seeking for a redeemer outside of us. That vibrational frequency was tolerated on the old earth because the veil was still up. We didn't know as much. We didn't have access. We didn't have the number of activations we've received. Our physical body, anatomy, and mind had not yet been edited. So this is the light body activations. It's actually changing the size of organs. It's changing the way the lymphatic system is structured, many different things. They may not know any of this. For them, church may very well be the only way they know to get this energy outside of themselves from the creator. So if you have strong beliefs around that and you value yourself, you would exercise boundaries. And a simple way that you can do this is say, thank you for the invitation, but I'm not going to be able to make it. You don't have to explain why. If they press you to explain why, just know that you don't have to. And you can say, I prefer to not explain the reasons. And I appreciate you for the invitation and enjoy and have fun. And I'll see you tomorrow, or whatever it is. You are learning how to be a thermostat, creating the environment, emotionally regulating yourself. This is also psychic shielding because you're holding a vibrational frequency of integrity to yourself and your heart. And whenever you do this, your inner child feels more safe with you because our inner child is watching us through our two eyes at all times. Okay. The next one is being cordial. You can be cordial and keep the conversation limited. If your intuition begins to speak to you, giving you information that they may not be offering you about their true intentions, their motives, or where they are vibrationally, listen to that. Don't ignore your intuition. When we ignore our intuition, which speaks through the gut and the heart, that communicates to our divine self that I'm not ready to be a part of you, and I'm not ready for you, my future self, to be a part of this present moment. Of course, when we push our divine self away, you're going to feel the impact of that. So this is self-betrayal as well. Another thing huge, because a lot of us are going to be creating new projects and ideas and creating music and songs and art and businesses and just so many things. Like, this is going to be a year of so much creation happening for those of us who are doing this work on ourselves. So as you're doing that, it is super, super recommended to move in silence because everybody don't have the same perception of you and what you're doing, and that's okay. In the past, we would probably share things with people hoping to get some support or excitement or encouragement, or I believe in you. That's fantastic. But that's old earth. That's the 3D earth way of being. It's a codependent way of being where I'm only okay and I could only have confidence in myself. I can only support myself if other people are supporting me. So yeah, so you want to move in silence, keep it to yourself. You don't have to tell them, especially things that you're working on within yourself. Like, that information is not something that's for everybody. A lot of that information is sacred and it's only for you until you have worked through it. Because later, especially if you're dealing with high narcissistic traits, combative personalities, people sometimes will bring it up later to try to hurt your feelings, you know. And so if we be more discerning about who we share certain information with, we can avoid being drained in this way. Now I'm going to move on to some of the information that we went over in a previous podcast, and I talked about this in the War on Consciousness. I want to talk about the impact that 5G is having on us. Energetically, we have not coexisted in this amount of radiation before. And because of that, the nervous system and our limbic system is functioning at a level it is not used to. And this is a term that was created in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken, called techno stress. And we're going to get more into that later. But for right now, I want to share with you how these wounds are showing up in our relationship. Remember, the star beetle geese that scientists thought was going to die, right? It hasn't. And it's helping to release some of the hidden habits, the hidden mindsets and beliefs, and coping mechanisms that we used to get success with on the old earth. It's removing that, it's pulling it up out of us. We're being purged of that. Right before the Queen transition, there was articles and news going out about the 72 demons of Goetia, but they were calling it the summoning of the 72 nations. But we know that demonic archetypal energies are what certain nations use to support whatever it is that they're doing. It could be war, it could be the commerce, it could be the workforce, so many different things. And so what happened was CERN was activated right when Sirius was rising. Then for the first time in a few years, at full speed, they broke history, actually. So now we have this dark matter that's in our atmosphere being charged by the charged particles that's released in the chemtrails, and it's been activated by the 5G towers. You don't have to see energy for it to affect you. Actually, it seems to affect you more when you don't see it, because you don't see the lions and tigers and bears that have you in fight or flight. We wake up in fight or flight oftentimes. If you're sleeping and you have Wi-Fi in the house, your body throughout the whole time you're sleeping is still absorbing radiation. So when you wake up, you're starting your grand rising triggered and in fight or flight, even though you just woke up. And this is why having a daily routine and disciplining yourself to commit to certain exercises and spiritual practices will help you to regulate yourself, set the tone for your day so that you can write the new verses your soul came to sing. And I keep referring back to music and tone and harmony and tempo, these words, because this is a rhythm that you are teaching yourself to have in your routines. And so for me, I've been cutting the Wi-Fi off at night, which forces me to not work all night long like I often do. And that's one of those hidden habits that I've tried to hide for a long time of being a workaholic. And sometimes it works for us. Sometimes we're in a phase where we need to work hard on something that we're giving birth to, but there's a time for everything. And so cutting it off at night using crystals like shungite, black obsidian, merlinite stone, citrine, all of these crystals help to absorb that energy as well. So placing these under your pillows, over top of the doorway of your bedrooms, your children's bedrooms, this helps as well to filter out some of that energy. Tourmaline, yeah, absolutely. Smoky quartz. So and those are typically the crystals we support ourselves with, which is why that's what we put on this website. Okay. So to be able to have more emotional regulation while our body thinks that we're in a war, and we kind of are, but you can create peace. You can absolutely create peace, and you can create your own high flying disc, as Abraham Hicks would call it, one of the teachers that speak about law of attraction. So here we go. I'm going to read some of this. Actually, I'm going to read all this. I'm just going to read it straight through and just pay attention and see what is resonating with you and what may be causing you to feel a wince moment where it's like a discord that you feel inside yourself. It's uncomfortable. It's, like when
Make you cringe.
yes, yeah, exactly. It kind of remind me when people used to scrape the chalkboard with their fingernails at school. And it just made my flesh crawl. That's a wince test, right? So pay attention and see how these different um, ways of communicating this message affect you. And this is a simple way that you can get in tune with your emotional body. A lot of us have been numb because that was what we did to cope, right? And now that the numbing medicine wore off, as Dr. Blind would say, the opioids that we experience from being raised in the religious homes and a religious society. I mean, the whole United States, the founding fathers based everything they did on the Bible. So whether we're practicing it still or not, it's in the air and it affects us. And some of it is in our genetics as well. Can you pick up right here?
Unsafe people can be judgmental, blaming, manipulative, dishonest, narcissistic, emotionally unstable, irresponsible, gossips, gaslighters, control freaks, backstabbers, demanding, and entitled with superior attitudes. Sounds like a lot of darkness is present in those behaviors, don't it? When in the company of people that demonstrate these fear-based negative ego qualities, we may need to create strong boundaries and set the terms of our interaction with them. In some cases, we may need to sever the connection entirely. There is generally nothing positive that will come from continually feeding destructive, harmful, or abusive relationship patterns that refuse to heal or evolve. We have to plant seeds where there is fertile soil if we want a garden to grow. And to shift out of the negative polarity of fear, one may need to pull weeds or walk away from that relationship pattern as an act of self-love and self-preservation.
Ooh, this is one of the hardest ones for me. Um, I've lived to be in service to others my whole life. And that's my natural baseline. My baseline is to care for people and to be compassionate. But if I'm not preserving my own sanity and my physical health, then I'm doing myself a disservice. And this is why a lot of relationships right now are not stable. And we're going to see more and more people getting divorced and separated and breaking up or staying together for the sake of the kids and being so miserable that any communication with spirit is being drowned out by the interference of the pain of unmet needs and unacknowledged wounds. And so many of us grew up feeling like something was wrong with us. Every time we got a whooping or got punished or got in trouble, even stuff that had nothing to do with us, like parents divorcing or parents fighting, like that, those things conditioned us to normalize some of these coping mechanisms that cause others to feel unsafe. And again, remember, we numbed ourselves. So that was how we coped. The numbing medicine is wearing off now. And it's just like when you go to the dentist and you get numbing medicine, your lips feel real big, right? And it's really not, but you're like, oh my God, it feels so big, but it's numb, but they feel big. And our ego had this inflated sense of being, and we were numb. It's wearing off now. So a lot of us are coming in and out of having experience of feeling small and inferior and not important. And that's the ego TKO. It's reducing. You're starting to see. I know. I actually I was flogging. I was just straight up false self flossing. Like I see that now. And I went through this several times, and I was just like, oh my gosh, how many more of these ego TKOs I got to go through? My divine self was like, as many as necessary. So it's like, okay, I say yes. This is a year of yes for me.
Yeah, that whole paragraph right there, that helps me. Yeah. Let me continue.
Okay. Yeah.
However, if we habitually feel unsafe with others, it may be we need to demystify the reasons we feel afraid and discern the difference between people that demonstrate unsafe behaviors and those who demonstrate responsible and safe behaviors. This also means that if we feel unsafe, it is our spiritual duty to build safety within ourselves by developing inner strength, based in the higher qualities that make us a safe person to be around. At some point, it is helpful to realize that the current accepted reality of negative ego behaviors and the frequency of fear has been used against people of the earth as a psychological weapon to weaken them. Fear is broadcasted everywhere in our environment, and this has produced relationally unsafe people all around us. Fear weakens moral character and it stunts the higher attributes of generosity, kindness, and tolerance for others. The manufacture of endless enemies in the mainstream media maintains the mass perception of continual threats, which conditions more fears and learned helplessness into the unconscious mind and pain body of humanity. The fear broadcast drills down into our personal lives, infecting our thoughts, behaviors, and relationships with the frequency of fear.
Ooh. So, this makes it make sense why mental health is one of the hottest topics in every community. And there is an alien agenda behind this because of the false ET gods, but I'm kind of simplifying some of these things because the spiritual ego loves to complicate stuff, right? And so the goal is to simplify these things. And so what's happening with us is from lockdown, some people just from that alone felt like they were going to lose their minds. And a lot of people went into depression. A lot of people lost jobs, had to switch careers. A lot of people got so sick they could not work anymore. I was one of them. A lot of people are experiencing less food. Simple necessities and essentials for life is difficult. There are more homeless people in every city. If you look at California and Skid Row, it almost looks as if Skid Row became this form of epidemic and blight, some type of petulance, and it just spreading across the world. And what I called it is blight. I'm going to get into that more as well. So, pertaining to that specific part, just remember, even though we're separate individuals, there is a collective unconsciousness in which we're all connected to. So the hive mind aspect is not something that you are disconnected from just because you want to be. There are steps that you take to unplug from the false womb 3D matrix so that you are not causing yourself to be vulnerable to these archonic parasitic entity attachments that love to hype us up to do things that are hurtful to each other and ourselves. Like that, it's no need in being frustrated or hating it. This is what we came into experience to evolve. It's like being a spiritual black belt. It's the spiritual Navy SEALs. That's what we came here to do. And we are water beings. We are emotional beings. The community I grew up in, the Black and Brown community, I mean, fear was the best way to get us to stop seeing it. And it was used so much. A lot of us grew up hearing things like, I brought you in this world and I'll take your ass out. And when they said it, they meant that shit. It almost felt like something jumped inside of them, body snatched them, and they talk shit to your little kid ass. And you ain't even know what to do. What the fuck can you do? Would you go call Child Protective Services and then get the hell beat out of your ass?
Just do what you told.
You know? shut up, kids are meant to be seen and not heard, do as you're told. That impacted us as a collective. So now we see fathers who run their homes this way. If my children don't fear me, they won't respect me. Sounds so much like
Slave.
a colonizer or a slave master. This same fear-based program is what the patriarchy used for men to objectify women, all in the name of being right, righteous, and spiritual. That the man is to be the head and the woman is the weaker vessel. Well, they proclaimed it for the last 6,000 plus years of the patriarchy. Now, as we can see, it seems that most feminine-based beings, womb men, are much more resilient to chaos than the masculine. So, any relationship that was created in this energy and those beliefs is being destroyed and demolished so that we can rebuild. And so me and Ernest have been talking about this a lot because I believe wholeheartedly that if we learn more about ourselves and do the individual work, having healthy, love, self-sustaining relationships will be natural. We won't have to be afraid of conflict. We won't have to put walls up and defense mechanisms and push people away and avoid being honest with each other. Because it's like, wait a minute, this person loves me, which means I can express to them how I'm feeling, even if it's something they might not like. Now, don't be going around telling your partner that you want to do some reverse harem shit or get you a couple of side pieces too quick. Okay, we're still working through this, but I do believe on the other side of this, monogamy is also changing to fit the new people that are inhabitants of the new earth. And people have been requesting for me to talk about monogamy. And I'm going to do that in February. I will be talking about monogamy, polygamy, harems, reverse harem, polyamorous, polygamy. It's important for us to reframe the way we perceive relationships. And I can tell you, women not putting up with the things that they used to put up with. And this is no shade to the men, but most women, because this is a man's world, we had no choice but to cultivate our masculine aspect. Men, they didn't have to cultivate their feminine aspect to survive, create structure, and feed their families and raise their children, and to be able to keep up with the work grind, to be able to go to school, work, cook, clean, heal. It's a lot. And so what happened was the feminine, even though she was being oppressed, she was actually being prepared for the time now. So we will see more and more of reflection of this happening. So for me and Ernest, we sleep in two completely different bedrooms most of the time because as an empath, I'm listening to the radio stations that he's on, even while he sleeps. And for all of the years that we've been together, I continue to find ways to shield my mind, and a lot of them are effective. But there definitely is an expiration date on doing things a certain way. So the psychic shielding was working fine, the crystals working fine, the potions working fine, the breath practice of meditation working fine. And then when the last Sirius rising happened and we all did the quantum jump in January of last year together, we did think about all the ceremonies and pujas that we've been doing. We are activated and we have a higher voltage within our light body, our Merkaba, right? The spirit soul, which means everything is amplified. I turned into Magneto overnight. This Naga right here turned into Wolverine. And he had no idea that his hands and his words cut that deep. And he didn't know that his thoughts cut just as deep that he would think as his words said out loud. And creating a boundary, I expressed to him, I need to be able to sleep alone some nights so that I'm getting enough sleep. I'm empathic. I'm here for a purpose. I don't want to try to shut down this gift anymore. I don't want to fear this gift anymore. This is what I need and to be able to be healthy. And that was a process of us getting to this point. So potentially next month, we're going to do some relationship reset exercises. So be on the lookout for what's coming because, you know, I I like to be the one to say it's no shame around this and this is what this is. You know, I really enjoy being able to liberate people from some of the constraints and limitations that have been self-imposed on us. Okay. So here goes some of the steps that you can use to help you. You might not want to do what I did. I also went no contact with my biological family. Like there are certain reasons you make certain decisions. What I have done may not be for everybody else. So feel your way through it and just see what resonates. And of course, the courses and the camps, that's the purpose in those. So we're going to go over a few. The first thing that I want to communicate is the territory. All right. The terror tory. All right. That is a terror story of being raised by traumatized parents who may or may not have been narcissistic, bipolar, depressed, anxious, borderline personality disorder, post-traumatic slave syndrome, as taught by Dr. DeGroot. And what's happening is those terror stories that we experience as kids, but we compartmentalize to function a day-to-day life as an adult, they're now coming back to us. So when that shows up in your mind or a trigger or a memory, the courses and the camps are there to help you work through that. All right. The second thing, new me stay. Namaste. New me stay is an invocation of my I divine self that I've been using for a few years and wanted to see how effective it was and for what situations it was effective. When I feel fear, when I'm having a flashback, an emotional flashback, this is not something that most of us are conscious of. When the terror stories come up and you have an emotional flashback, you may not specifically remember, oh, this is how I felt when I was a kid and they didn't pick me to play on the basketball team, right? But me telling Ernest I need to sleep alone could have been an emotional flashback for him in the form of a trigger of times where he was rejected. So this is an unconscious pattern that's happening beneath the surface. So ways that you can hold on to the new me, the new you, to stay present, because when we're triggered in this way, we get in our head. And once you're in your head, you're not in your body, you're not in your heart, which means you're not present. You're reliving a past emotional experience so strongly that you're unaware of what you're emitting and transmitting through your body in the present moment. So this is literally an out-of-body experience, which opens you up to be body snatched by whatever energies is flowing through the area, and your mood will follow these energies when you aren't able to be self-aware and direct your energy. So you can simply use New Me Stay and hold in your heart, right? And do this like after you've been triggered and you notice something, or to disarm a toxic conversation. You can just take some slow deep breaths and New Me Stay. Like, I'm determined to hold on to the new me. I'm not going to let me go. Namaste. It's a term that many spiritual communities use, and it's a term that denotes peace, right? So this is you creating peace within yourself, not having to change the other person or the environment, but learning how to hold on to yourself, okay? So New Me Stay, simple way to invoke yourself and come up with your own creative ways to get your new me to stay present. Okay. The next thing are the 4 R's, and they may grow because sometimes I create these and then some others are added. Matter of fact, We're going to do the 5 R's, because it's steady growing. The first thing, if you find yourself in a toxic situation, I want you to remember the R team. This is what the new me does to stay present with myself. Exhibiting self-worth by refusing to participate in narratives of drama triangle games. Okay? So the first thing that you do is you remove yourself if possible. If you can actually physically remove yourself from the experience to take a breather and a break, do that. If you can't, removing, again, new me stay, remove the impulse to react in a negative way, breathe and anchor yourself and get grounded and centered so that you can hold on to your peace and yourself if you can't remove yourself. But if you can, I recommend that you do so. This is boundary and this is self-love in action. The next one is to repair. While you have pulled yourself away from the situation, you can begin repairing any damage that you feel inside of your emotional body. So if your heart is racing and beating fast, then you're going to focus on your breaths and just breathe slowly. And this is repair to regulate the nervous system. If you happen to be someone who goes into fight more so than flight, then you could hold ice in your hand, and this will allow you to regulate your emotions. For some of us, splashing our face with cold water will help shock the nervous system. Bring you, because we literally, this is like a death. It's like a little death. We die in these moments. Your soul not present, you're not even living. You're not even alive in that moment, right? So using cold water will help to jolt the nervous system to come back online. So this is repair. The next thing, there are many ways to repair and regulate the nervous system, but the purpose is regulation. So when you're repairing, the purpose is to regulate. So let me add regulate to make sure it's clear. The next step is PRP. But since we're talking about the R's, let's just go with the word reframe. Reframe the picture, the visual of what happened. Okay. You might reframe a negative situation from I'm being attacked and they obviously have something against me. You can reframe that and say, wait a minute, I remember this is not personal. We're all going through something right now. And we have been through a lot just in the last 2 years. So I can have compassion for myself and for them because we've been through a lot because of that. I do know that we are going through these collective purgings to help us to heal. It's not personal. New me stay. That's a positive reframe. Okay. The next thing is to relax. That was the first card that I pulled when I did the collective reading, which is on YouTube the other day. But to relax. Breath is one of the easiest ways to relax because it's something that's always with you. You don't have to pay for it and you don't have to go and get it. You don't have to look for it or find it. Just connect to your breath to relax. Once you have relaxed, you can return to the conversation if there was a resolution that is necessary to be able to move forward. Now, on sensitive issues, for me, when I'm easily triggered, before I even have conversations, I use the R team, right? So you don't have to wait till you're triggered and respond with the R team. You can use this to be proactive as well. All right. The last one, and one of my favorites, is gangster gratitude. Personal favorite. You gotta get gangster when it comes to isolating radical reasons to be grateful for the wounds you are discovering. This is alchemy. And here's an example. I became hypervigilant because my home environment was unsafe and unpredictable. The shadow this created was a wounded inner child archetype of being the rescuer. I can look at anyone and immediately sense their pain, even if they are unaware. The integration of my shadow allowed me to become one of the most accurate psychic intuitive mediums, in my humble opinion. And so I took this shadow aspect of myself and turned it into a superpower. The appreciation for my troubled childhood is the epitome of the creation of gangster gratitude.
Mm.
So get grateful. If you can't get grateful, just knew me stay. I'm open to being grateful. I don't know why to be grateful for this right now. I'm not used to perceiving things in a positive way. My baseline reaction is to see things in a negative way. So I'm just opening my heart to invite gratitude. Our divine self, show me. Spirit guides, ancestors, show me the positive side of this so that I can feel grateful. I want to feel grateful. That's more than enough to just desire to feel grateful. Okay. Uh Now codependency. Of course, codependency, we talked about this. This sets us up to attract vampiric situations. Once we interfere, once we interfere, interference happens and we become prey inside of a fence. Interfere fence. Codependency is the need to please other people so that we feel comfortable. All right. And this is a form of isolation that happens when you're dealing with someone who may not be aware that they're using these vampiric qualities to try to control and manipulate you. And again, it's no shame and no guilt. Like, I believe every human being go in and out of this from time to time. It's all about how you recover, right? Some of us may benefit from isolating ourselves to find the I solution. And that's the solution that involves you and only you. That's one of the most healing solutions. So that you're not looking for something outside of you to love you, protect you, and give you what you have not been able to give for yourself, to yourself. Okay. I went no contact with dysfunctional relationships, which includes my relatives. And sometimes when you do that, be ready for the blowback of it. You want to have a strong sense of self. You want to remind yourself that you're not a bad person. You're not doing anything to hurt anybody. You're not a bitch. You're not a whatever people might say about you. You're not bougie. You ain't chain, all of that. When you have a strong sense of self, that's the identity that people use to shame you and guilt trip you. It don't work anymore. And I have accomplished this while going no contact and doing the work on myself. No, that's for me. You don't have to do that. But there's plenty of videos on YouTube about going no contact. And we're also going to add a playlist with over 1,400 videos where you could do plenty of freshening up on some of the things we're talking about. We're going to put that on the group in my networks as soon as we're done. Grounding, super useful. Walking barefoot, breath, tactile sensations and experiences, touching things. What do I smell? What do I taste? Have something that you can drink to help you regulate your emotions. You know, say to yourself, if I get dysregulated, I'm going to go make me a cup of ashwagandha tea. I'm going to make me a cup of chamomile. And that taste will create new ways for your brain to fire and wire so that you're able to regulate your emotions using using your senses. So again, this is not you expecting something outside of you to help regulate. Okay, so that's a simple way that you can help yourself. Inner child healing, which we have available in the camps on the site, and meditation and meditations are also in our courses and camps as well. For those of you who are empaths, and maybe you resonated with my personal story about the way this Magneto-like gift shows up, maybe a few nights sleeping alone and just see how it works for you. It might be useful, and you may find yourself having less disagreements with your partner or sibling or best friend or whoever. Sometimes even, yeah. Sometimes the kids, just like, mommy really need to sleep alone tonight, right? Okay. Energy vampire symptoms in relationships. Here's another test. All right. So you can see how many of these resonate with you. Number one, he or she, this determines if you're over invested in other people. Okay. He or she puts little to no effort in the relationship. Have you ever had that experience? Number two, in your gut, you know this relationship is grossly unfair, but you rationalize this bad situation into an okay situation. Number three, the relationship has negatively affected other areas of your life, which includes friends, family, work, income. Number four, the relationship holds you back, preventing you from growing as an individual. Number five, the same situations or issues recur even though you've tried addressing it multiple times. Number six, there's tension between the two of you much of the time. Number seven, this relationship drains you of mental and emotional energy. Number eight, though you don't know the exact reason, you're walking on eggshells most of the time. All right. These are just a couple. If any of these resonated with you, it's possible that that relationship is based in fear and unprocessed trauma, which creates a vacuum titled as energy vampire. So that is inspired by Mark Hutton, Hutten. And you can find him on YouTube. He is one of our relationship coaches that we have worked with throughout the year as we're doing our relationship reset this year. And so, yes, I highly recommend it, even though he's talking about high functioning Asperger's, things like neurotypical and neurodiverse. Those words may be new to you, but just listen and you will find that, you know what, I might be experiencing this. Okay. Now, let's scroll down to ways that you can prevent from getting yourself back wrapped up in some energy that you know for sure you don't want to be a participant in. You don't want to give consent and engage in certain things that drain you of energy. So these are ways that you can detach yourself, practice the law of detachment. This is not numbing yourself. This is not putting up walls and pushing people away because you're afraid to speak your truth. This is the law of detachment. It's a little different. But you cannot be available too much. You know, talk, but talk in limits. We kind of talked about that. If you have that one person that call you, and every time they call you, they telling you the same thing about something they boss did at work or their supervisor, and you keep saying, you know, well, maybe you go to human services and you know, fill out a form and let them know this happened. No, I don't want to do that because I don't want to lose my job. And maybe this is the 58th time you had the conversation. Well, it's gonna get draining going over and over and over, especially if you being a listening ear is not gonna impact them in any way to make a different decision. Then you don't have to listen to that, and you can excuse yourself and just say, you know, thank you for sharing that with me. I have some things that I need to get to, but I'm definitely going to keep you in my prayers. Or, you know, something simple. I'm sending you good vibes to get through it. I trust that it'll work out for you because I know how wise and how resilient you are. And this is you just speaking positively into a situation so that you don't get stuck in the interference or their terror story. Don't sacrifice your schedule for other people. All right. Now, this is in limits. There's some people that deserve your time, some people that may not. Don't make other people the biggest topic of your life. You know, you talk to somebody and they never talk about anybody else except this one person that they say they hate. And it's like, well, we spent the last 45 minutes talking about them. Maybe we could shift the conversation and it might feel better to you to not talk about the person that you feel like you hate, right? Don't make plans in initial stages of getting to know people. Actually get to know them. Like if you're dating, you don't want to take it to the next level. Like just get to know them. And don't make a lot of plans to do things together because you're still figuring out who you are. Me and Ernest made that mistake. We didn't spend enough time figuring out who we were individually, so we got trauma enmeshed, right? Avoid being needy. The more needy you are, the more you are going to be taken for granted. And this is just natural. Okay. And this is something that I can relate to. And I'm sure Ernest feels the same way. That's why we're sharing it.
Yep.
We get needy and clingy when we're trying to cope with something. Okay.
Mhm.
And so there are other ways that you can feed yourself. But the neediness and the clinginess, a lot of times, um, people would have sex trying to get this jolt of confidence or to feel better or to feel less anxious or to feel like the relationship is okay and we're fine. And so we misuse sex. We misuse monogamy. We got in relationships to not feel alone. Some of us really didn't spend much time as an adult alone getting to know ourselves. So of course you're going to be needy and clingy, when you're dealing with something like that. But the goal is to cultivate and nourish yourself. All right. Don't fear losing people. If you fear losing somebody, you're dealing with a narcissist, they go pick up on it, they go dispose you, and then pick you back up and reel you back in with some type of manipulation, love bombing. Before you even know it, you're right back in a situation you said you wasn't going to allow yourself to be in. Okay. So this sets us up to be drained. We're really like a billboard saying, hey, just you can have all of my energy because I don't know what else to do. Right. Uh avoid persecuting yourself, pressuring yourself, pressuring your mind and be perfect, pressuring yourself to always have the perfect response, to say the exact thing that you should say, those shoulds. It's too much pressure. And if the person can't tolerate you making a mistake or getting upset or blaming them or something, it's limits to things. But if it's not happening all the time, and the one time it happens and someone just want to be done with you and dispose of you, it might be for your benefit that they are removing themselves from the relationship. Sometimes spirit is doing this to help us, which is what the astrology is doing right now in January of 2023, helping us to let go of things that may be a disservice to us and draining us. All right, let's see. So we went over ways to handle toxic people. We went over ways to practice the law of detachment. Now we're going to go down to the last thing for tonight's conversation, which is techno stress. Okay. So I'm going to read just a little bit of this because I want you to know why we feel so stressed out. And sometimes I don't even know why. It's just a feeling. And this article this morning while I was in communion with my guides, this article popped up and I was blown away by the timing of this because yesterday, and I said I was going to talk about this. Yesterday, I took our daughter to get ice cream and it was packed. I didn't think it was going to be packed because it was so cold outside. It seemed like everybody wanted ice cream. So it was packed. We had stood in line for a while. And I just started observing and looking at the faces of couples, the faces of people who were parents. You could see the unhappiness.
Mm.
You could see the grief and the sadness. You could see how they are together, but they are exhausted. One don't know where the other began and the other end. They are so enmeshed in trauma and burdened by the fast, high pace speed of life now. Everywhere I look. And I had tears in my eyes at one point, sitting there I took my shield down just for a moment to see, like, am I picking this up right? Am I picking up an accurate transmission? And I just so happened to look right across from me, and it was a man and his wife and his 4 children, and he was in the military, most likely the Air Force. Um, I could tell whatever debriefings he had been in, he was a bit stressed out about it. And I could look at his wife, and I saw the bags on her eyes. I saw how exhausted she was. It was almost like she was not in her body. That's how fatigued she was. And the kids were really well behaved considering all of this. So I know that she probably works really, really hard to run the household. And as a military brat, I know how stressful it was traveling and moving so much and not really feeling like you are part of any community because you're constantly moving. You don't know who you are, and you don't know who your friends are. And you don't have friends that you have for long periods of time because you're constantly moving. You don't really get a chance to get to know people. So I could see that, and I looked at the kids, and I could see it on the kids too, where it's like we know mom and daddy having issues and we don't know why, but we can't say anything. We don't want to get in trouble. And it was like eating this ice cream was like this one moment of peace that they could have, but I could see on their faces, it was like as soon as we walk out this door, it's back to reality. Right. And so I did PRP, put my shields back up, cleanse my auric field. So many entities was just in there, just they came in on people backs. And I remember thinking to myself, the old me probably would have stood up and made a fucking announcement and said, look, I know it's been a tough last couple of years, but there are some simple things that we can do to help us to process this stress. Our stress hormones are the highest they have ever been collectively and individually. And I probably would have played the blood of Jesus at the end of that and did a prayer on old earth. The new earth, I had to self-preserve, take care of me, make sure we was okay, do a PRP reframe, and not allow myself to enter into the terror story.
Mm.
Yeah. So this is called the human cost of digital revolution. And this article is about techno stress and the impact it is having on our health, mental health, and sense of self. If you would just read that first portion.
Okay. Chronic stress is the new normal, screamed the Forbes headline this month. It stopped me dead in my tracks. Has it really gotten this bad? Like smartphones, stress seems to be a ubiquitous companion as we lurch from crisis to crisis while sprinting to keep up with the pace of change. Stress thrives whenever there's an imbalance between the demands being made of us and the resources we have available to meet those demands. When our resources are overwhelmed for weeks or months to an end, we experience chronic stress, resulting in depleted energy, negative emotions, and lower productivity. Worryingly, chronic stress is the last warning sign before burnout. While employee burnout is steadily increasing, global productivity has slumped since the internet went mainstream. Organizations are spooked. 90% of employers are committing to greater investments in mental health, stress, and resilience training, along with mindfulness and meditation programs. However, band-aids don't fix bullet holes. Betting the future of work on wellness supports at the individual level without addressing the source of increasing stress levels is unlikely to prove effective.
Now, how we got here, we know how we got here. We've talked about this. And I can honestly say that so many employees, I see what they're battling with mentally and emotionally. And that's the result of what we talked about, the karma being released that was stored in certain planets. Planets are like governors of the systems within the solar system. We are the microcosm of the macrocosm. For many of us, astrology was something that we did not look to for guidance because it didn't make sense to us. It was confusing, or we were raised to believe it was the devil's work or bad. So how do you have direction for your life purpose and your spiritual sense of self, your divinity, and you have no idea what's happening that's creating the energy for the collective to go through these evolutionary stages on the planet. So with the media gods, the techno gods, which we're going to be sharing more information about as well, you want to make sure that you continue to be in the group with the podcast, because we're going to add some information that I received this morning pertaining to techno stress before I even found this article. And I didn't even get a chance to search for it and read about it. Went to check the emails to make sure we had everything set for today. And I saw it and I knew, I was like, techno stress. Like I was literally just channeling about this. So the father of the term techno stress, his name is Hans Selye, and he lived from 1907 to 1982. Okay. And he broke it down, and there are two types of stress. There are negative effects of stress known as distress, and there is eustress, EU stress, which is the positive impact. An example, when I'm stressed out, I innovate and I adapt and I found a way to function. When I ended up having vertigo and double vision, I had to innovate, be creative, and adapt and find new ways to function without getting rid of the symptoms. And so it actually made me a better version of me, even though I may have this physical limitation, things affected my vision, but my inner most being, right? It supported me. So that's the EU stress or U stress, okay? So small doses of stress, it helps us to stay alert. It fuels our motivations. It supports us as we adapt to new experiences. However, when the scales are tipped towards distress, we feel overwhelmed, exhausted, and depleted. Okay, so there are three stages. One stage is the alarm stage. This is when the stressor is detected, so the body responds with a fight or flight response. The sympathetic nervous system is stimulated and the body's resources are mobilized to meet the perceived threat of danger. Stage two, resistance. The body focuses resources in dealing with the stressor and remains on high alert until the threat subsides. Number three, exhaustion. If the stressors continue to overwhelm the body's capacity, our resources become exhausted. This stage is the home of chronic stress and eventually burnout. The human stress response involves many psychological components. First, the brain initiates the most immediate response, signaling the adrenal glands to release epinephrine and norepinephrine. Then the hypothalamus and pituitary activate another part of the adrenals to release cortisol. The nervous system responds by initiating behavior responses like alertness, focus, and reduction of pain receptors. Now, remember, I talked about being numbed out and opioids? That was the effect of being in the illusion of the holographic reality before the matrices was started to be pulled down. The sympathetic nervous system increases the heart rate and releases fuel to help fight or flight free from danger. It redirects blood flow to the heart, muscles, and brain away from digestive processes. To accommodate these demands, there is a vast increase in energy production and utilization of nutrients and fluids in the body. Once the stressful situation has passed, the brain signals these responses to be turned off. And finally, recovery and relaxation allows the body to reestablish balance in all systems. We talked about the R team. But what do you do when the perceived threats don't dissipate? What are the consequences of facing a relentless bombardment of fear and uncertainty? So, this digital age is actually a vampiric system that creates stress, creates fear, and a lot of times we are emitting that through our existence when we are unaware. Okay. So we're going to give you we're going to give you some things that you can use to help you with this. I want to give you a couple of psychological systems, because energy vampires is not just us, ourselves, and people. It's the tech gods as well. I was saying this in the world consciousness. These are the archons 2.0. They went digital, right? So what happens is our dependency, our codependency on technology, we're using this stuff, but this stuff is emitting EMFs that's not healthy for us. So your nervous system and limbic system is being dysregulated, right? So some of the key stressors, the symptoms psychologically and physiologically is fatigue, irritability, insomnia, sleeping too much. Psychological symptoms could be frustration, additional mental load, skepticism, a reduction in job satisfaction, reduced commitment, and lower productivity. If you're tired and exhausted, you just can't. And a lot of us that work and have to leave the home, when you come home, you don't have energy to work through whatever might be happening with you and your partner, or you and you and the roommates, or your siblings, or your family. So techno stress is getting more and more traction lately. And some of the new findings that they're finding is that there are 5 key domains of these hidden threats to this digital age. Number 1, techno overload. Number 2, techno invasion. Number 3, techno complexities. Number 4, techno insecurity. And number 5, techno uncertainty. So to learn more about these and what each of them mean, the physiological, psychological, and behavioral impact, you can go to the group and read more about this. That article has already been posted for you to check it out. Okay. We also have the PDF, Energy Vampire Survival PDF. It was written by someone that I consider to be an expert who has helped me so much to adapt to the changes and recreate what's necessary for me to be the best version of me that I can be. And I can honestly say that even though it has been difficult, it has been more rewarding than anything. And for the first time in my life, I'm not having nightmares as much, really not at all. I'm not having ruminating negative thoughts. It's rare. And when I do go into it, I emote. I let the emotion come through me. I'm not holding back tears. I'm just letting it out. I'm being more vulnerable. Dark feminine energy is courageous. It's open and it's vulnerable. And it is not something that happens as a result of an external situation that is trying to get you to respond a certain way. The dark feminine energy is, I recognize that my subconscious self right now is showing me something. And instead of going into a toxic masculine energy, I'm just going to surrender, release resistance, and take the path of least resistance. And in doing that, I have been able to avoid betraying and harming my own self much more than ever before. So we have a few tools in the store that can help you with this. The pendulums that we have, this is the citrine Merkaba pendulum that we have. And this pendulum is very useful because you can ask questions like, is this disagreement we're having based in ego and fear? And is this the best time for me to address this? If it says no, then you continue to do what you're doing and come back to it later. The 5 R's, the R team, because it's growing. Instead of trying to make decisions, you want to train your intuition. A lot of us live in a state of fight or flight, freeze or fawn. We don't even know that it's not normal. How do you make decisions if you have executive functioning issues and it's difficult? You're having memory issues, short-term and long-term memory has been affected because of the virus, because of the frequencies, because of the toxins, the pollution, all of it. This helps you to make decisions that will align you with the harmonic frequency of the new earth. So we have many different kinds of these on there. We also have tiger's eye, which is great for giving you courage. I'm wearing tiger's eye now. This is one of the Kali Lotus Lux that we have, and those are almost sold out. Might be two of the travel size Kali Lotus Lux and tiger's eye left. Matter of fact, I think it's one left. So just check out the store and see what we have to help you. And the next one was the obsidian that I talked to you about. You can see my fingerprints all over it in oil, so you can tell I use it a lot. This will help you so much to absorb. This is created by a volcano. So it literally holds the energy to be able to absorb high amounts of energy within it. Volcanoes, fire energy, earth energy coming together. And this is much like a negative energy sponge. It also could be used to talk to your inner child, to communicate to your divine self. Any spiritual conversation, spiritual communication is amplified using obsidian. So I speak directly into my obsidian, acknowledging that as I speak into this crystal that is part of the marine kingdom, that because of the color, it absorbs energy, right? It's black, it absorbs energy. So anything that's harmful for me in my quantum field of consciousness can be absorbed. So when I want to complain, when I want to vent and get it out, I'm like this. This shit like my walkie-talkie to the spirit realm. You know what I'm saying? How it started off? 1014. What is it?
Breaker.
Breaker. You know? And I'm like, look, Houston, we have a problem. I need to get this off my chest because I don't want to let it ruminate. And I don't want to project out onto somebody unfairly. Right. And it's funny because I dropped it and I freaked out. Like, oh, you've been holding all of my negative energy. And this little motherfucker strong as hell because all it had was one little bitty spot on his side. And when things like this happen, it's a message. And I was sitting there looking, I was apologizing. I was like, I'm so sorry, I apologize. I apologize for dropping you. You're valuable to me. And I don't mean to treat you as invaluable. And the crystal said back to me, I'm no less valuable because you dropped me. And I have a dent, a wound, just like you. You can still use me.
It's good.
I said, what got me? Like, I'm talking to obsidian and it feels so good to my soul. So these are the tools that we have to help. Were there any questions before we get off of here? Did anybody have a question? Look like no, it's us. We cool. All right. So if you catch this on the replay and you have questions, just drop your questions below. Thank you for joining us. Did you have any words? I said I was going to stop asking you that if you did have something pre-prepared, but did you want to say what you were going to say from the heart?
Okay, sure.
All right. This is your time.
Okay. And I'm gonna read off something that I wrote. Yeah. And this is just a vulnerable reflection. I definitely want to acknowledge all of the support, all of the love that I get, me, as being a part of what we do, what Cam does. I can't help but to say I'm grateful for being a part of it. Uh, this journey, this spiritual process. Um, Coming into metaphysics, that was new to me. Um, I came from a religious type of background, where I never studied into metaphysics, period, even young, growing up. And so coming into an awakening and all of that, uh, it it has been devastating. I'll say it like that. It was devastating, and I was just stuck. I got to a place to where I was really stuck, and um, though I was present on any of the lives, any of the classes, I did not invest my full self into it. And so I just want to make sure that it's clear. I never try to sit in a place to where I'm like, I got it all together. I know it. I know all of this because a lot of times I only come into the awareness through Cam. When it comes through her, she shared with me, and then I'm taught. So I see myself more so as a student, just like all of
Yeah.
us. I'm a student. Yeah, we all students of life, and I just want to make sure that I'm able to start expressing things because Cam would tell me, like, you don't be coming from the heart. You know what I'm saying? You be more so in your head. And I get it because yeah, that's how I lived most of my life in my head. And so to now have to be more heart led and more heart centered and operating from that space, yeah, it has been difficult. But I see all of the benefits. I have a front row seat and I get to see all of the benefits. I get to see the transformation as well as the transformation that I have experienced personally myself in doing what I have done. So I'm not negating none of the stuff that we've been doing that I've been a part of, but I still been dragging my feet though. I'm not gonna say I ain't been dragging my feet. And so I'm so grateful again for being allowed through Cam the opportunity to have the space to heal, evolve, and become the divine masculine that I know is in me. I just got to work through all of my wounds and work through all of this trauma. And so if that brings clarity, oh, and Cam as the oracle, as a creator, content creator, she does all of the content. She does. I just feel privileged that I can be like the catalyst for inspiration and motivation because I'm always well, I ain't gonna say always. That's not the right word. But I do have the tendency and patterns of being more triggered and causing all of the occurrences in most cases that it causes her to have to be like, it causes her to choose to say, you know what, let me see what's going on right here. Or let me find out why this is like this. And so again, I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful for being able to share, being able to be here. But as time go on, and we've been talking about it, I am going to be much more vocal. Actually, I am going to start utilizing
The tools
the
that you got.
tools.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You equip.
yeah.
Yeah. Um,
So yeah, I just want to say that.
it's okay for us to be vulnerable and transparent. We're not on the old earth unless we choose to be. It's a choice.
Yeah,
And be patient, be compassionate. It's a practice. That's why it's a virtue. And things will continue to improve. Things will continue to shift for your benefit right now more than ever. Believe in yourself so much that you don't have to have anybody, right, to do anything for you to do what you came here to do and write the new verses for the song that your soul came to sing. It's yours. And being in relationships doesn't mean that we own one another. And it doesn't mean that we have the right to tell each other what to do either. But there are some responsibilities that come with being in a relationship that we were misguided on. And yes, it has created more harm and heartbreak than love. Fear based relationships, that's old earth. Love based relationships, that's the new verse. And that's what we're doing. We thank y'all. We're going to go
thank
out with
you.
some songs. And if you happen to be watching the replay and you didn't catch this live, that's all right. This is episode 7, and we're not stopping. We're just not getting started. Right?